In this short podcast, I'm going to run through the controversial character of Oliver Cromwell and his time as ruler of England and other countries in Great Britain, in the British Isles, should I say. He is one of the most controversial figures in our history, and what we need to know, particularly in Year 8, is the reasons why perhaps some people would see him as a good ruler and others perhaps think him as probably one of the most infamous people of our time. So, on the execution of Charles I, we have a rump parliament created. Of course, it's Parliament that wins the Civil War, and it's members of Parliament that sign the execution warrant for the king. Now, what's known as the Rump Parliament governs for a short while, but it's very obvious that they disagree, they're ineffective, and Cromwell, as leader of the army, is very soon seen as holding real power in the country. And the Rump Parliament is dissolved not long after. It's replaced by a bare bones Parliament, which has a much more religious theme to it. But again, that becomes ineffective as well, to the point where we see members of Parliament asking Cromwell to take direct rule, which he does. And he acts quite quickly in making sure that strict control over the country is adhered to along the new model army lines. Of course, he is a general after all. He never takes on the name king. He adopts the title Lord Protector, and there are a couple of events and how he manages the country that we need to look at. Firstly, he manages the country like he very much would manage a military unit, a military outfit. He divides the country into different districts, I think 11 in total, and he puts, of course, people he can trust in charge of them. But he's also left with this idea that the notion that there are other countries in the British Isles, notably Ireland and Scotland, that were ruled by Charles I, and they are disaffected with what's happened because essentially it's the English Parliament that have executed their king. So, in the end, Ireland, to begin with, openly revolt, and Cromwell is forced to send his army over there to deal with the uprising. And what is interesting about this, and what's important about this part of the story, is that he sends soldiers to lay siege to towns such as Drogheda or Rexford. And it's the manner in which he seizes these cities is indiscriminate, and the tactics he uses is terror. 3,500 people of Drogheda are slain by Cromwell's army, and likewise at Rexford, close to 1,500 are also killed as well. And it's the indiscriminate nature of this, women and children included, that many people levy against Cromwell as being barbaric. He's a similar. His dealings with the Scots are quite similar as well. The Scots, using Charles I's eldest son, who's also called Charles, invade England in the 1650s, and with Cromwell's army chase after him. They meet in the city of Worcester, where a battle is fought literally in the streets there, and the Scots are defeated. So, for the Scots and the Irish, being ruled by an English general has not gone down well in history, and it's a slight in the manner in which he fought these battles. And I suppose defenders of Cromwell would say that these were hard times. I mean, these are the era of the Civil War, where harsh measures were required. Another aspect to think about with Cromwell's rule is the fact that he, although initially he wanted religious tolerance, what we see very quickly is a puritanical Britain. He does not want large groups of people meeting together and discussing and being disaffected about his rules. So he bans sporting occasions such as football matches. He introduces other puritanical laws such as the banning of singing, going to public houses. Sundays is pretty much can be used for going to church and reading the Bible. Christmas is outlawed, as seen as a Catholic tradition, Catholic celebration. So all in all, what we see in the rule of Cromwell is ruled by the army, puritanical, and his mistreatment of the Irish and the Scots. What we need to decide is whether this means that history should judge Cromwell as being a bad Briton and a bad ruler for the UK, for England in particular. Well, these are difficult times. England had been divided, and the moral fabric and framework of England hasn't really been resolved since the time of the Reformation. We've got Catholics, Protestants, Presbyterians in Scotland, we've got the Puritans on one side, and they've all been living alongside each other, and it wasn't working out. They fought a civil war over this partly. And what Cromwell is doing is, look, I'm a general, I'm a plain-speaking man from Cambridge, a farmer by trade, and the only way to keep stability is to rule by dictatorship. In other words, to rule by firm hand. And so, yes, the actions in Wexford and Drogheda are difficult, and yes, the actions against the Scots were tough, and outlawing public meetings is a nasty thing to do. But if you could show me a better way of keeping peace in the country, well, I'm sure he would have been all ears. Interestingly, what we see after the death of Cromwell is that the monarchy are invited back, and we see a return, in part, to the social fabric of England before, but the way England was ruled would never be the same again, and that's in part down to Cromwell and how he controlled the country. So much so that his place in history is pretty much cemented in lots of different ways. Of course, he's taught it in schools, we teach it in schools, but it's Cromwell's statue that takes centrepiece outside the House of Parliament in London, which tells us a lot about how important he is to the history of Britain's constitution, in other words, the laws that govern the land, and his role in that. There's never been a ruler like him since. There was never anyone like him beforehand. He was never king, though arguably he was king in all but name.